So, Microsoft's Xbox says Nintendo and Sony are not its main rivals anymore. What the fuck ever? Let me be absolutely 100% clear. I'm a cynical bastard. I assume that anything a company does is in the interests of the company. If they do something which is in the consumer's interests, either the government has forced them into it, or it's just a coincidence. So when Microsoft says Nintendo and Sony are no longer its main rivals, I immediately think Xbox is trying to psychologically place themselves on a higher pedestal. They're saying, look at us, we're way too awesome to be in the same division as those losers down there. It's tempting to see this in isolation just as corporate bluster, school kids arguing in the playground, mine's better than yours, nah 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 nah. Unfortunately, it tells us much more than that. The industry has made no secret of the fact that they are pushing towards digital-only platforms, where physical game systems, the hardware, is in the cloud servers, and the software is too. The statement says so in black and white. They now consider Amazon and Google as their main rivals, because they're both investing in cloud-based systems. And it's incredibly easy to see why the greedy corporate dicks want that. By looking at the situation right now. Let's take the Xbox One, since it's Microsoft we're talking about here, and let's take a popular game that's been out for a while, Resident Evil 2. Take a look at these prices. Which one do you like the look of the most? If you're buying something, which price is the most appealing? If we look on Game, the current price of Resident Evil 2, 20 quid, but it looks like there's some kind of sale right now, so let's pretend the sale isn't going on and go with the base price that it says of 30 quid. Over on Amazon, we have a price of 17 quid, plus let's say 3 quid for postage and packaging, that's about 20 quid. On the Xbox One's own digital storefront, the Microsoft Store, 45 quid. Ouch! That's a lot more, relatively speaking. Game will also sell you the digital download code for this, but again, it's 45 quid. Take another look at these prices. Now look at the platforms those prices are with. Now, let's assume the Xbox One is a cloud-based gaming system requiring a constant internet connection and physical games are now a thing of the past. Which leads me straight back to ouch. It's not even a problem unique to Microsoft's Xbox. Sony and Nintendo are probably thinking the exact same things, even if they're not doing them yet. Incidentally, Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation Store is 35 quid. It's less than on Xbox, but it's still more than Game or Amazon. It gets worse. Notice how there were 3 prices on screen, meaning I had 3 options for buying the game before, meaning if one place lowers their price, the others have to at least consider following suit to stay competitive. Now, I only have one option. What reason does that one corporation have to lower their prices in the future? None. Competition's gone. It gets worse. At the moment, you can sell your copy of Resident Evil 2, the physical copy I mean, back to the shop for a few quid. The shop then sells it on to someone else. You get a bit of money back, the other someone gets a game for a reduced price. Win-win! Even better, the shop itself makes very little money from new game sales. The game makers take almost all of it, but the shop makes all the money from the second-hand game sales. Sorry, did I say the second-hand market was a good thing just then? Well, it's gone. Because the physical shops have gone. Because games have been 100% digitised by the corporate overlords. And Microsoft's terms of sales declare that digital sales are final. Well, unless, for example, it's totally broken. It gets worse. You can't even hand the game to a friend. Because there's nothing to handle. Because digital. It gets worse. The internet, when you get right down to it, is a pretty lawless place. Oh sure, there are rules here and there, but those rules vary from place to place. Where did the information start? Where did it get routed through? Where did it get processed? How was it processed? Where did it end up? Who used it? For what purpose? And then there's nationalism. Our country, our rules. Your rules don't apply to us, sunshine, nor do they apply to any of our people in our country. Oh, sorry, did he do something to your country while in our country? Well, we don't like you very much, so piss off and sort it out yourselves. The very concept of trying to go all in on the internet before you can actually police the internet effectively sounds like a recipe for abuse to me. It's like trying to put a saddle on a fucking T-Rex. I don't know about anyone else, but that sounds like a bad idea. Yeah, I'm sure I'm exaggerating more than a bit, but the lack of government oversight, coupled with the game industry's tendency to put profits before consumers, with the added issue of next to no competition, doesn't exactly fill me with confidence. It just gives them license to do whatever they damn well please. You won't have to buy a console. I can only assume that means more subscription fees. Probably extra charges on top of that for certain things. We have Amazon Prime at home, but we can't watch everything on Amazon Video. Some stuff you still have to buy separate. Then you've got to hope you don't live in an internet black spot. I mean, obviously if you're watching this video, you don't. But for cloud gaming, you're going to need more than basic internet. Especially if the technical pricks on the other end keep trying to push us towards 8K resolution, whether we can see all the bloody pixels or not. And then... does anybody remember a certain time about 6 or 7 years ago? Does anybody remember back in the day when a company, I don't know, let's call them Microsoft, declared their next major video games console, just for argument's sake, let's call it the Xbox One, would have DRM. Anybody else remember that shit? I don't even have an Xbox One and I remember that shit. Having to sign the console online every 24 hours to confirm your console is actually yours, otherwise it bricks itself. Games not only tied to your account, but tied to the console itself, meaning no second-hand market or friend trades. If this sounds familiar, it's because I've been talking about it for the past few minutes. It's the same bullshit as before. It's just dressed differently. It's more subtle, but the result is the same. Apart from instead of having to sign in every 24 hours, you'll now have to stay signed in constantly. And you no longer own your console, you just rent theirs. I know that there's an argument to be made over whether you actually own your games to begin with. You know, the company owns the game, you buy a license to play it. I understand that. I start getting twitchy when there's a possibility a game may simply get switched off because reasons. Who can forget the way the PT demo was pulled without warning? I used to play and enjoy an online game called Dead Star, and it was a freebie on PlayStation Plus when I got it, but I enjoyed it, so I bought all the DLC starships as well. And then they shut the servers down, and I couldn't play it anymore. That's what bothers me. Offline games, and yes, I know Dead Star was online, offline games shouldn't be dependent on an online link. But that's where we're headed with cloud gaming. Microsoft say they don't see Sony and Nintendo as serious rivals anymore because they want to push us towards cloud gaming, which will eliminate competition, drive up prices, limit our options, and allow them to control what games we are able to play on a whim. We can already see their digital-only prices on their storefronts. And we've seen what happens when you give them free rein on DLC, season passes, microtransactions, and loot box gambling mechanics. You don't need a crystal ball to see where all this is headed.